Okay, so now I'm in Microsoft Excel looking at the raw data spreadsheet inside of this Microsoft Excel file. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate measures of center and spread of multiple random variables. So you could just do it for one random variable, but I'm going to show you how it takes no extra effort to calculate measures of center and measures of spread of more than one random variable. Okay, it's really very easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing the calculations here on the right-hand side, and it's going to be of these random variables: speed, height, drop, length, and duration, which is in columns D, E, F, G, and H. So I'm going to scroll over a little bit so that we can see this blank space here off to the side. And the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of set up this space off to the right to include the measures of spread for these and the measures of center for each of these different variables. So I'm going to left click and drag the headings. Oh, first of all, before I do that, you don't ever want to mess with your raw data spreadsheet. So let's make a copy of this. I almost forgot that. So let's right click and then choose move or copy. And we're going to create a copy, and we're going to put it just before this height only one. So it'll be right after raw data. So make sure create a copy is selected and click OK. There, now it says raw data 2. And now I can left double click, and that allows me to rename it. So I want to call this measures of center and spread. There. Now, this is what I'm going to modify. All right, so left click these column headings, these random variable names, and I'm going to hit Control C for Windows to copy. And then not in this cell, but this one over, I'm going to hit Control V for paste. Okay, and if you double click on the border between two columns, you'll notice the cursor changes from a downward arrow to this one with a line and two arrows right and left. When it changes to this icon, double left click, and it'll resize the column automatically. And so you can easily do that with all of these to resize the columns so it fits the entire name here. All right, so what we want to be able to type, or what we want to calculate, is we want to calculate n, which is the number of data points that we have, how many blank spaces we've got. For measures of center, we want to calculate the mean. We want to calculate the median. And we want to calculate the mode. And the standard deviation. That's our measure of spread. Now, my data set is on all roller coasters in North America. So because it's all roller coasters, mine is going to be the standard deviation of a population. If your data set isn't a data set of an entire population, but only a sample, then you would want to call this sample. Okay, like that. But mine is a population, so I'm going to label it that way. Okay. So for each random variable, we're going to have the number of data values, how many blank spaces. And what I mean by blank spaces is you'll look, notice this duration random variable. There are cells, there are rows without any data in them. So that's what blank means, is how many of these blank ones we've got. Then we'll calculate the mean of the speed random variable, the median, the mode, and the standard deviation of this speed random variable. And we'll do it all in this column. And just to kind of make this look neater, I'm just going to select the cells, and I want them to be right justified. So up here under alignment, this is under the home ribbon. Under alignment, I can click right justify, and then everything will be kind of nice and straight on the right-hand side with an equal sign. And then we'll have numbers over here. So before I start, I want to make note of where the range of data is. So for example, the first data point is in cell D2. So I'm just going to type D2, and then I'm going to put colon. And then if I look down at the bottom, let's see what row this goes to. So my data goes from D2 to D242. So up here at the top, I'm going to type D242. All right, so that's just to remind me that's the range of my data for each of these random variables. It goes from row 2 to row 242. All right, so in order to use functions or use formulas within Microsoft Excel, you need to tell Microsoft Excel that you want to use a formula. And the way that you tell Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets that you want to use a formula is the first character you type has to be an equal sign. As soon as you type an equal sign first, then the spreadsheet software is going to expect some kind of formula. So if I were to start, typing the word count, okay, now it's giving me a list of formulas within Microsoft Excel that have the words count in it, okay? And this will be the one we end up using. But notice if an equal sign is not the first word, the first character I type, okay, now Microsoft Excel just thinks that that's text, that it's nothing. So you have to make sure that you start a formula with an equal sign. And I'm going to type the word count, and I'm going to use this first function count. So this counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So I'm going to click count. And now it wants a range of values. And the range of values are going to be D2 colon D42. And so notice as I start to type D2 to D242, notice on the left-hand side how it started selecting that range. If I changed my range to D2 to D15, notice it's only selecting D2 down to D15. Okay, but I want to select all of it. So I'm going to put D42, right parentheses to close that off, hit enter. Okay, and it's annoyingly trying to guess what I want for the rest of it. And I want to turn that off. So autocorrect, I'm going to put stop automatically creating calculated columns. There. All right, so hopefully that won't happen again. Yeah, I wish that would go away. All right, so I've got 241 numbers in this column here from D2 down to D242. Let's count the number of blank spaces. So because I want to use a formula, the first character I type is an equal sign, and it's going to be a count function, and then I can put count blank. So if I click that, double click it, now I put in a range. So the range is D2 to D242 and hit enter. And so 0. So that means there are 0 empty cells in this whole column. Okay, now we want to calculate the mean of this column. So again, we want to use a formula, hit equals first. Now there isn't a mean function. So if I start typing mean, okay, there's different kinds of means, but not an average. And that's the function that it's expecting. It's expecting average here. So we'll use the average function. So just click twice on average, and it wants a range. So we want to get the average from D2 to D242 in parentheses. And that's it. For the median, hit equals, and then start typing median. And there's a median function, and it goes from D2 to D42. That's where our range. And there's the median of that range. Now for mode, equals, mode. Okay, so we're going to look for a single mode. So double click mode single, and then our range. So D2, D242, right click. And then for standard deviation, we'll hit equal. And then if you start to type the word standard, okay, there aren't any formulas that are called standard, but standard deviation is abbreviated. So STDEV. So just type in the letters ST. And because I'm dealing with a population, I'm going to want to use this function. So this calculates the standard deviation based on the entire population given as arguments. You might be dealing with a sample, so a subset of a population. So you would use this function instead. Okay, but I'm going to use this one because mine is dealing with a population of roller coasters. So I'm going to double click that, and it wants a range of numbers. So the range of numbers goes from D2 to D242, and hit enter. All right, so now I've calculated, all of these descriptive statistics of this random variable. Now, if I want to be able to calculate these same descriptive statistics for all of these random variables, I don't have to go in here and type the functions all over again. Okay, I don't have to do that. All I have to do is select these cells with the formulas in them. And you'll notice that there is a solid square dot in the lower right-hand corner. Just put your cursor over that dot. You'll notice the cursor changes from this large plus sign to this filled in plus sign. And if you left click and hold, and then drag over to the last random variable, and then let go, it automatically copies those formulas into each of these cells and calculates for each one of these. So that's why I was saying, even though you calculate, you type in formulas for one random variable, you can easily calculate those values for more than one without any extra effort. You just have to drag over. And something to note is that in this cell, notice it's going from column D, it's using column D to grab the values. If I go one column over, it's grabbing it from column E, which is this one. And the next column over from this one is the drop random variable. And the next one over from height is also the drop random variable. And if I click here, now it's using column F. And if I click over one more, it's using column G, which is the length random variable. Go over one more, and now it's using column H, which is the duration random variable. And you know that this is working right because at least in this duration random variable, see, remember I had some blank spaces. Now it's showing that there's 84 blank spaces here, whereas in the first one, there were 0. And you can see these values are changing. So everything looks pretty good. All right, so, I decided to go ahead and combine calculating measures of center and a measure of spread, all at the same time, because it didn't take any extra effort just to add more. So this concludes this guided tutorial on using Microsoft Excel to calculate measures of center and measures of spread for multiple random variables really easily.